federal government says it is committed to achieving the goal of ending AIDS as a public health threat by 2030. The United Nations Resident Coordinator in Nigeria says human rights violations continue to undermine the goal of ending AIDS in Nigeria. Minister of State for Health Isaac Salako says the government has taken steps to fight HIV-AIDS by using a sector-wide approach. The National Agency for the Control of AIDS is placing special emphasis on stopping AIDS among children.
Over the year, we have made significant progress in the global as well as in the national HIV-AIDS response. Advances in prevention, treatment, care have saved cumulative life and brought up hope to so many people around the globe. However, despite this achievement, human rights violation and abuse continue to undermine the progress towards the 2030 goal of ending HIV/AIDS as a public health threat. Children also remain disproportionately affected by this epidemic.
With a current HIV prevalence of 1.4% in the general population and an estimated 2 million people living with HIV/AIDS, it is critical for us to continue on the path laid out by the various reforms and ensure that our response meets the needs of vulnerable groups. I am pleased to announce that we have taken a step forward in the fight against HIV/AIDS by ensuring that HIV is fully integrated in a sector-wide approach, which helps us to ensure that all resources are aligned with our national health priorities and will scale up HIV response with full government ownership and accountability.
To address challenges, to strengthen our efforts in the ongoing fight against HIV, it also reminds us that despite advancements, challenges still persist, especially among the marginalized communities. This year, we are placing special emphasis on stopping AIDS among our children, as well as raising the consciousness on sustainability and ownership of the HIV response.
Well, joining us now is the National Coordinator, National AIDS and STDs Control Program, Dr. Adebobola Bashorun. Thank you so much for joining us on Newsnight.
Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
We've come a very long way from not knowing what this infection was to losing millions of people globally and to prevention now and a pathway to even completely ending it by 2030. A new UN AIDS report last year says this path is possible, but they did highlight the path and statistics and data to show how this path can be achieved. One is political will, strong political will, and financial backing. So my question to you is, does Nigeria have that political will and the strong financial backing needed to end AIDS by 2030, as the government has recommitted to ending it by 2030? Can we really achieve that?
Yes, good evening. We can achieve that because the government is more committed than ever this time around in terms of ownership, sustainability, and of course guiding people on the directions to take. So as a country, under the current government, current administration and the leadership of the president, with the coordinating minister of health, Professor Ali Pate, and Dr. Isaac Salako working together as a team, they've been able to give us good guidance that we can use to pursue that. And in terms of funding, if you recall, and there's this sector-wide approach that the current government is leading and everybody's aligning with that to ensure that we have efficiency built into the expenditure. So it's not just spending aimlessly, spending in a targeted way that looks at every sector to a sector-wide together to achieve one common result. And I think this is achievable. And the other reason why it's also achievable is that with current science, there's what we call treatment as prevention, number one. So the more you get people and you put them on treatment, there's less probability of transmission from one person to another. That's number one. And with that treatment as prevention, you can as well improve the PMTC coverage. For you to eliminate HIV in a child less than, when I mean child now, 40 years and below, you need to ensure that number one, there is no transmission perinatally, that's through pregnancy or through any form of relationship with the mother. And so the earlier we get all the positive mothers in Nigeria, we place them on treatment, we ensure the full PM60 package is given to them, the probability that we're going to have a zero generation is very strong. And if you look at it critically, I always tell people time is skewed in log. It means the longer the time, the more people that will be phased out. So those that are currently on treatment, normally they're all on treatment, they will leave their ripe ages. But with time, whether you're on treatment or you're not on treatment, at a certain age, maybe 80, 90, 100, you leave the system. So we have to protect the new generations coming in, and it's only through PMTCT we can do that. Then infection control, then third one, treatment as prevention. For those that we know that are positive, give them treatment as prevention, there will be no transmission. So the principle of ABC... But
that's the problem. People that know that they are infected, but there goes the problem. There are still a number of people who do not know they're infected. So the problem is catching those people and ensuring that they are now on treatment, isn't it? So based on our estimates, we have about, and that's the true figure, over years, at least for the last 3 years, over 90% of those that are positive are already on treatment. So we are looking for maybe 10% that is left. And in terms of figure, we have 1.9 million Nigerians living with HIV. We are currently having about we are sure we have 1.63 million on treatment. So we are looking at about 270,000. Out of these 270,000, if you look at it from the analysis, some of them are children, some of them are pregnant women. So the idea is we are now strengthening the PMTCT scale-up. We call it a PMTCT scale-up, whereby we are going to over 25,000 facilities in Nigeria to ensure any woman that is pregnant is enrolled in ANC, tested for HIV, if it's possible, linked to care for the child and for herself. So in the real sense, we are going to get close to within the next 2 years, we should get close to 95, 96% of people that know their status. But the fact is, we must try as much as possible to prevent new infections. And like I said, new infections can prevent either, because we have discordant couples, a man that is positive, the wife is negative, based on treatment. If the husband is on treatment, you can't transmit to the wife. Those are issues that science has proven that with treatment, you can reduce that transmission. So going into the future, in the next 2 years, even before 2030, I see Nigeria achieving close to 100. Or maybe I'm too ambitious, maybe 99, 100. And so it's doable with science. Government commitment is there. There's better funding now in terms of our system. So initially, partners, if you recall very well, in 2002, the first treatment program was started by the Nigerian government. Then partners came. We saw it was a robust project, very fruitful. They joined and supported. So along the line, they kept supporting. But now the government is taking back in terms of sustainability, aligning resources and getting the desired result for the country.
And I'm sure a lot of people share sort of your hope, your optimism, talking about 1.9 million people being positive and 1.63 million people being on treatment, and a 42% reduction in new HIV infections since 2010. And so we're towing a good path. And it's great that you mentioned the focus on prevention of mother-to-child transmission. But I just wanted to ask you more about Adesuwa's second part of her question, funding. It's a major obstacle, we all know. Is there a way that Nigeria, I know Nigeria provides sort of less than 20% of required funding. How can we address that imbalance? Do we see state governments putting more efforts, private sector stepping up?
So thank you. I will answer it in 3 ways. The first, you said we have less than 20%. We have actually more than 20% because all the facilities belong to the Nigerian government, the staff, personnel, people like us that work there. That's number one. So if you do a proper analysis of kind and cash, it's far above 20%, it's close to 50%. That's number one. Number two, the current administration under the Health Sector Renewal Initiative, right, is focusing on unlocking the healthcare value chain. It simply means all the drugs we need, or most of the drugs we need, most of the consumable test kits will be produced in country. So apart from reducing importation of what we use, we are going to produce them in Nigeria. So it will be much cheaper. And it's going to give more value, more economic value to our economy. More people will be employed. That's number two. Then the third one, when you see all these things playing out, the private sectors, we're also putting money for production. The government is also creating the policy and the pathway. And with the policy for, of course, importation for health products, for the next 2 years, based on the executive order, we have some level of excise free for importation to ensure we produce in Nigeria. So if you look at the holistic picture, it's cheaper for us to manage as a country. And I see the government is determined to do that under the Federal Ministry of Health.
Great. Dr. Bashorun, you forget that you're speaking to a wide range of audience, those who understand your medical terms and those who don't. So when you mention the figure 90, 100, 100, we need to explain to them. There's a code for the United Nations and partners who agreed some 15 years ago or more than to achieve a 95, 95, 95 by 2025, which is next year, and that is 95% people must know their status.
95% of those that are HIV positive must know their status.
Another 95%.
95% of those that know their status must be on treatment.
And then the last
95% of those that are on treatment must remain on treatment and be virally suppressed.
Great. And so now that we have established that, you do say where is Nigeria currently? I know you're optimistic and you're giving those figures, but where does Nigeria stand currently in that code?
Currently, we're at 90% of Nigerians that are positive know their status. 95% of those that know the status of the 90% are on treatment. 96% are virally suppressed.
Okay, great. So to my question now, because one issue that has remained high with countries trying to prevent and even end AIDS is that of stigma. It has been with us for a long time. How well are we doing with that? How's the government tackling that?
So yes. So first of all, we have what we call the mental health program. Initially, we didn't have the mental health program in the federal ministry, but we have a full division called the mental health program. And this mental health program looks at areas around HIV, other diseases, not just HIV, suicide control, and the rest. So in terms of stigma, you need to address it both internally and externally. Now, the internal part of it is that a person must be given that we call it insights, that ability to know that you are above this. We're doing an outreach. We went to Banex.
Here in Abuja.
We are doing outreach for this World AIDS Day. And we met some guys there, young guys, and they told us, no, they feel there's no stigma. We said, why? He said, no, it's one of those that there's treatment. You can use like your hypertensive drugs, you can like your anti-diabetic drugs. And so there's no, you have to believe in yourself that it's not a big issue. Now, the second part of it, how do people react to me? That is where the social behavioral change component comes in. And once people get this, is well addressed. In those days, people used to say, you can't touch, you can't, but now you can. You
can't share a spoon.
You can do everything. There's no difference. You don't even see it. They are even finer, stronger, better, more intelligent. It's just, a lot of people have debilitated like a lot of chronic diseases that are not even HIV. But you won't know. And we have other diseases that are even as similar or as difficult, like hepatitis, like let me use viral hepatitis for example, but you don't see it. So for me, HIV shouldn't be a stigmatized disease because it is, for me, one of just the spectrum of diseases that has treatment that you can control. What just is behavioral change component for the person looking at me, and for me myself to have that self-belief and still focus on my goals.
So reorientation of people's mindsets, and I think especially in rural and underserved areas. But quickly, before we let you go, what about technology? How are we leveraging technology? Could AI-powered tools help in preventing, creating awareness? How are we leveraging technology in this aspect?
So we are leveraging technology in, number one, AI. We have a model that we can use to predict transmission models for HIV, artificial intelligence. We also have the model that we can use to determine the probability factor of getting infected. You just have raw data. Probably in Asokoro, you got this figure today. You went to Kogi, you got this figure today. We can put and to see, fine, this is the hotspot that AI will advise. Do social interventions in this area. That's number two. Another one that technology is helping us, there's also what we call the VISTA, vaccine, that's a science technology acceleration. Innovation acceleration is done in 8 African countries. The idea is there's currently no vaccine globally that can address that. So 8 African countries, Nigeria, Zimbabwe, Zambia, and some others, came together under some funding to do this VISTA approach. It's also using technology to see the subtypes in Africa that probably the vaccines can handle. So technology is AI, normal medical technology, biomedical technology, and biotechnology approaches to address some of these things.
Interesting. Thank you so much, Dr. Adebobola Bashorun, for sharing insights on Nigeria's path to ending AIDS by 2030. It's doable.
Before 2030.
Before 2030, we are right on track because it also ties into the Sustainable Development Goals.
Sure.
Thank you so much, Dr. Bashorun.
Thank you.